Attention to Zimbabwean moms. Did you know that custody of a minor child in Zimbabwe is not an automatic thing? Hello everyone, my name is Uraya Chikwetu. I am a practicing lawyer based in Harare, Zimbabwe. The topic for our discussion today is custody of minors in Zimbabwe. In other words, we are going to discuss the custody of minor children in Zimbabwe. What has motivated the discussion on this subject matter? The discussion has been motivated by the debates that I picked on various social media platforms, which pushed a certain narrative on this subject matter. The narrative was to the effect that when parents of a minor child are living apart, the custody of a minor child is given to the mother of the child automatically. I found that narrative not supported by any legal instrument in Zimbabwe. This has motivated me to come up with this video, because the debate has actually demonstrated a poor appreciation of the correct legal position with regard to custody of minors in Zimbabwe that is being held by the members of the public. So the purpose of this video is to debunk that wrong position advocated by those who are discussing the subject matter. I'm going to set out the correct legal position with regard to the custody of minors in Zimbabwe, and also I am going to share with you the legal principles that the courts apply when granting custody to either the father or the mother of the child. But before I do that, I just want to say that this discussion is not legal advice. We are just covering the general principles on the subject matter. If you have got a burning case on the subject matter, I encourage you to seek the services of a lawyer so that you can be advised on your specific legal situation. You know, laws are very dynamic. By the time you want to address your peculiar situation, things would have changed. So I encourage you to seek the services of a lawyer to your specific situation. At the same time, I encourage you to follow, subscribe, or like the platform on which you are watching this video. If you are watching this video on YouTube, I encourage you to subscribe to Global Justice Talk. And if you are watching this on Facebook, I encourage you to follow Law Stories with Chikwetu page. If you are watching this video on TikTok, I encourage you to follow Global Justice Talk. We now move on to the discussion on the legal position with regard to the custody of minors when the parents of the minor child are living apart, and there is no court that has granted any order as to who is supposed to be having the custody of a minor. What does the law say to such a particular situation? That particular situation is dealt with by the Guardianship of Minors Act. According to Section 5 of the Guardianship of Minors Act, that is Section 5, subsection 1, when the parents of a minor child are living apart, the custody of a minor can be given to one of the parents up until the order regulating the custody of a minor is issued in terms of Section 4 of the same Act. From that legal provision, you can clearly see that there is no parent who is elevated to a position of superiority with regard to the custody of a minor child. The mother is not elevated to the position of superiority with regard to the custody of the minor child. Why is our law structured in such a way? I think Parliament must have been motivated by a constitutional demand. Parliament must have been motivated by the need to ensure that the two parents or the two contending parents are placed on the same footing. In other words, Parliament promoted equality between the two parents. And where do we find that in our constitution? According to section 56, subsection 1 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, all persons are equal before the law and they have got the right to equal protection and the benefit of the law. This must have motivated the Parliament to enact a law that treats these two parents equally. At the same time, if you read the same section in the Constitution, this time around, you read the subsection 3 of section 56, you will find that the Constitution does not permit unfair discrimination of persons or people. The Constitution does not allow unfair discrimination based on grounds such as gender, sex, marital status, among other things. So the Parliament of Zimbabwe must have been motivated by the need to ensure that there was no discrimination. If it has elevated the mother of the child to a position of superiority with regard to custody of the minor child, it would have actually discriminated against the fathers. It would have actually created a law that is against the Constitution, a law that infringes the Constitution. So from the reading of this provision alone, you can actually pick that there is no parent who is elevated to a position of superiority. The mother of the child, when the parents are living apart, is not elevated to a position of superiority. There is no automatic right to custody of the minor. Then we move on to the legal principles that guide the courts when making a decision as to who is supposed to be granted the custody of a minor child. But before I do that, I just want to remind you to subscribe or like or follow the platform on which you are watching this video. What are the legal principles that the courts apply when granting custody to either one of the parents? We find the legal principles in section 4, subsection 1 of the Guardianship of Minors Act. According to that provision, when a court is approached by one of the parents with an application to grant custody of a minor, the High Court or the judge is enjoined to grant the custody of the minor to either one of the parents, looking at the best interest of the child. In other words, the guiding principle there is not what the feelings or the interests of the parents are, but what are the best interests of the child. the feelings, the interests of the father or the mother are irrelevant when the court is making a decision on who is supposed to be granted custody of the minor. Once again, we ask ourselves as to why has Parliament come up with a law which speaks to us like that. Again, we find guidance in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Parliament must have been motivated by a constitutional demand for it to provide in the Guardianship of Minors Act to the effect that when making a decision as to who is supposed to be granted custody, the best interest of the child is the most important factor to be looked at. According to Section 81, subsection 2 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, the best interests of a child are paramount on all matters concerning the child. So our Parliament thought it must comply with that constitutional provision, that constitutional demand. And that's why we have got that provision in our statute. So basically, I have actually laid out the legal position. When the parents are living apart, there is no parent who is granted superiority on matters to do with custody. And I have also indicated the legal principles that guide the courts when they make a decision as to who is supposed to be granted the custody of a minor child. It is very clear the mother of the child is not elevated to the position of superiority. The courts will simply look at the best interest of the child, and they will end up granting the custody to the father or the mother of the child if it is in the best interest of the child to do so. So the narrative to the effect that the mother, when parents are living apart and they have got a minor child, the custody of the minor is granted to the mother is not supported by our law. In this case, it is not supported by our constitution. It is not supported by the Guardianship of Minors Act. Thank you so much for watching the video. I encourage you to read the Guardianship of Minors Act as amended. There was an amendment that was passed by our parliament and assented to by the president in 2022. You need to read that act. It's very small so that you get a correct legal position with regard to matters of custody. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. That is, if you are watching this on YouTube, and follow the page if you are watching on Facebook. If you are watching on TikTok, I encourage you to follow Global Justice Talk. Once again, I also encourage you to pose your questions in the comments section, and also give me some topics that you think I must discuss on issues to do with law. Thank you so much.